There's a quiet question that keeps coming up in conversations, in feed threads, and in the small talk at family dinners. Why does the world act like life must follow a fixed map study? Work, find a partner, marry, raise kids, as if those steps are the only proof someone has lived well. It's offered so often that it starts to sound like facts. People ask it kindly, friends tease about it, and social media shows milestones in a steady reel. But the facts of life today do not line up exactly with the facts of life a generation ago. Cities, jobs, technology, the cost of living, and how people connect have all changed. When you look at these shifts clearly, staying single starts to look less like a failure and more like a considered choice that fits modern reality. Epictetus taught a simple, yet firm lesson. Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. That line is short and practical. It asks a person to separate what they control from what they don't, and to invest energy only in the first group. In our time, the social pressure to pair up is often outside a person's control. It comes from tradition, family, and public expectation. Choosing not to follow that pressure becomes, in Epictetus' terms, a way of guarding freedom. It is not about rejecting connection. It is about refusing to surrender what is under one's own care, time, focus, and the building of character to forces that do not belong to the self. Look at the old reasons for marriage and household formation. In earlier times, pairing up was often about survival. Two people shared labor, pooled resources, and kept a household going in a world where social supports were weak. That made sense then. Today, for many people, a single person can earn a living, rent, or buy a home, and maintain friendships that support life in ways that formerly required a family structure. Technology gives access to remote work and global communities. Social services and different forms of household support exist. In short, the survival argument for early pairing is weaker than it once was. That changes the decision calculus. Dating today also adds new layers. Apps make meeting people easy in one sense, but they also introduce new kinds of friction. Swiping, small talk, short dates, messages that vanish without explanation. This pattern produces a kind of fatigue. People talk about being tired of first dates that go nowhere, of conversations that stop, of ghosting and mixed signals. Walking away from that game isn't necessarily a rejection of romance. It can be a practical choice to avoid repeatedly spending emotional energy on things that offer little return. It's a decision to preserve attention for projects, learning, and healthy relationships that might be more available later or in different forms. Time is a resource that often determines priorities. When two people share life in a household, many small choices require negotiation. What to cook? Who will take the morning shift? Which friends to see? How to spend the weekend? These daily questions add up. For people trying to finish an important project, earn a degree, build a business, or train a skill at an advanced level, uninterrupted blocks of focus matter. Single life allows for those long, concentrated stretches more often. That kind of focus can change the course of a career or creative pursuit. It's not romanticizing solitude. It's the math of attention. Money is another factor. The costs of housing, childcare, and healthcare are high in many places. Some people delay or avoid the financial obligations of family life in order to build a more secure base first. That looks like prudence, not avoidance. Saving, investing, starting a business, or paying down debt before adding shared financial responsibilities can be a mature plan. Epictetus offered a view that fits modern budgeting. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Fewer wants can mean fewer obligations and more freedom to make choices without being under financial strain later. Emotional labor exists in relationships, and it is not small. Love is rewarding, but it asks for attentiveness, listening, compromise, carrying through illness or difficult years. That labor is meaningful when chosen, but it still draws from a person's finite emotional energy. When someone needs months or years to do inner work, therapy, steady habit formation, recovery from past hurts, spending that energy on a partner can reduce their ability to heal. Single years can be seasons for repair and stabilization. That's not avoidance, it is preparation. Doing internal work first tends to make later relationships healthier. It helps to be precise about solitude versus loneliness. Loneliness is painful and is a real risk. Solitude, by contrast, can be an active and productive state. In solitude, people have space to test routines, try new disciplines, and learn their rhythms. They can fail in private, learn, and keep trying. Solitude can be a workshop for the self. The Stoics valued this internal work because it builds character. Doing practical things alone, cooking for oneself, keeping a small home, making a budget, handling a repair, builds competence. Competence breeds confidence, and confidence is useful in any relationship one might later choose. Friendship often changes shape in single life. Without a partner as the center of daily life, many people spread their attention across a wider network. Friends, neighbors, colleagues, mentors. That diversity can make social life resilient. If one relationship ends, there are others ready to sustain the person. Single people often invest in rituals, weekly dinners, community groups, volunteer work, sports teams that create durable social bonds. Those chosen ties can be as deep and nourishing as romantic attachment. Stoics prized friendship. It is not lesser, just different. Mobility and optionality matter in a fast-changing world. With remote work, freelance opportunities, and global job markets, people often need the freedom to move quickly for chance offers or brief contracts. A person without shared household obligations can accept a short-term posting in another city, try living abroad, or move states without long negotiation. That flexibility can accelerate career growth and personal development. Optionality is a genuine asset in modern life. Health and recovery give another practical reason to choose single life, at least for a while. A person who has faced emotional breakups, family stress, or personal illness may find it wise to use a season of single life to build steady routines. Sleep, exercise, therapy, and consistent eating. That stability strengthens resilience. Entering a new relationship in a better place makes both people more secure. This is not selfishness. It is careful self-care that benefits future partnerships should they arise. Practical civic factors shape the choice too. Some cities and countries are more friendly to single households because of housing options, transit, and social programs. Other places make single life difficult through high rents and limited supports. The structure of the world matters. Where cities designed for many life shapes, single living becomes safer and more viable. Stoic prudence says to adapt choices to the conditions you face, not to an old script that no longer fits your context. There's also the social media layer. On one side, feeds display highlight reels, engagements, weddings, trips that suggest a life being checked off. On the other side, the internet shows many models of living now. Solo adventures, tiny houses, co-living collectives, and community projects. The visibility of varied paths helps normalize different life shapes. The Stoic advice is simple here. Notice what others display, but do not let curated images determine your decisions. People are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. Seeing others' lives is informative, not determinative. Creativity often benefits from focused stretches of time. Writers, artists, and researchers sometimes require long, uninterrupted windows to finish work. Single life can create those windows more easily. This pattern shows up in modern artists who take sabbaticals, in entrepreneurs who spend intense years building startups, and in scholars who pursue deep study. Those years are not pauses. They are investments. There are emotional worries people raise. What about regret? Or missing out on intimacy later? Those are real fears. Stoic practice suggests planning and intentionality lower the risk of regret. If single life is chosen with thought, friends nurtured, financial plans set, health attended to, regret is less likely than if someone simply drifts into singlehood. Doing the planning matters. Regret usually grows from having left things to habit or to pressure rather than to reasoned choice. Single life is not a single template. Some choose it temporarily, some choose it long-term. Some choose co-living, some form deep friendships, some adopt pets, and some plan single parenting with careful support. The shape varies. The Stoic instruction is to know the purpose and choose a style that aligns with virtue and reason. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Decide what kind of life is meant, then arrange it. Then, there is a moral angle too. Stoicism does not say attachments are wrong. It says attachments that control you are risky. A person who chooses single life to build inner strength and then later enters a relationship from that strong place is likely to create a healthier partnership. A person who rushes into coupling from fear may produce a less stable bond. The moral move is to act from reason and care. Community matters. Single living works better in places with good civic design, safe streets, public transit, social centers, and accessible healthcare. Societies that support many household types allow people to make choices without crippling risk. That is a public responsibility as much as a private one. Where civic structures support single life, it becomes a real, respectable, and less fraught option. There is also an ecological note. Smaller households sometimes use fewer resources per person. For people who include sustainability in their priorities, choosing single life or delaying family formation can match larger environmental goals. This is not a universal argument, but it is part of the mix for some. In practice, staying single requires administration. Single people tend to handle legal forms, emergency plans, and health proxies earlier. Those practicalities reduce vulnerability. Being prepared is adult work. Write a will, set up emergency contacts, plan finances, and build a local network. Taking those steps secures freedom. Finally, the Stoic core returns. Reaction matters. It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. The modern world will offer images, pressures, and options. The person who responds with calm judgment, who plans, who builds stable habits, and who cultivates community will create a life that fits their purpose, whether paired or single. Choosing single life can be a wise, deliberate, and practical stance, not a default. And so the conversation continues, not as a debate, but as a practical map for living. Think about the kinds of small choices that change a life over time. Choosing where to live, which job to take, how to spend evenings. Each choice adds up. For someone living alone, those choices land fully on one pair of shoulders. That can be heavy, certainly, but it can also be clarifying. There is no split vote. Decisions move quickly. And moving quickly, when it serves a purpose, can be an advantage. Consider the person who wants to learn a new language well enough to work abroad. That takes months of focused study, awkward practice, mistakes, and long nights. Doing this with a partner who needs steady emotional support or whose job makes major demands is more complicated. That's not a moral judgment. It's a fact of logistics. People sometimes choose single life precisely to create the conditions for deep learning or for a career pivot. That choice is planning, not avoidance. What about parenting? Some people plan to be parents without a spouse. Others prefer to wait until they can create a two-parent household. Either path can be responsible. What matters is readiness, financial stability, emotional preparation, support networks. A Stoic approach asks what is within control and what is not. If becoming a parent is a chosen good, prepare the ground first so the decision is likely to support flourishing. If parenting now would compromise well-being for child or parent, delaying makes sense. Practical care before major commitments is prudence, not cowardice. There's also a difference between being single in a dense, friendly neighborhood and being single where isolation is common. Geography shapes experience. In walkable cities with community centers, single people can join clubs, meet neighbors, and build regular networks. In more isolated suburban settings, single life may mean longer drives and less spontaneous contact. That is real. One reason people choose to stay single is because their environment supports it. Another reason they pair up sooner is because their social structure rewards larger households. Epictetus would say to know the conditions you live under and to act with that context in mind. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. The what you would be part includes knowing whether your city or community will sustain a chosen life shape. Financial systems play a role too. Some countries offer tax benefits or housing subsidies for families. Others support single households with renter protections and social services. That changes the practical balance. Choosing single life in a place that penalizes it financially requires more planning. Choosing it where systems support solo households is easier. It's a pragmatic score. Weigh the policy landscape alongside personal goals. Good planning is not glamorous, but it prevents crises later. Health planning matters. Single people often think ahead about emergency contacts, medical directives, and local friends to call if trouble strikes. That kind of planning is sensible and mature. It removes a lot of anxiety about the future. Single life asks for proactive habits, regular checkups, good sleep, a backup plan for housing, and a small emergency fund. These are the ordinary acts of adult risk management that make single living smoother. They are a form of quiet responsibility. Practical rituals help too. Simple weekly patterns, a regular dinner with friends, a hobby night, volunteer work supply rhythm and meaning. Rhythm reduces aimlessness. Many people who live alone create robust calendars of small commitments that give structure and joy. Rituals also reduce the chance that loneliness will become a slow ache. People who schedule connection stay connected. That is not a trick. It is the wisdom of deliberate life design. Let's talk about intimacy in a broader sense. Many people assume emotional closeness requires romantic partnership. But intimacy takes many shapes. An honest conversation with a friend, a long phone call with a sibling, a mentor who knows your struggles, a neighbor who checks on you. Building intentional intimacy across a community can satisfy deep needs without a romantic relationship as the single source. Stoics prized honest, strong friendship. Those bonds can be life-sustaining and tender in ways similar to romantic ties. Career and single life often fit. Careers that demand mobility, odd hours, or unpredictable travel are simpler to manage solo. A person who wants to accept an international posting, try working on a film set, or join a research team in another time zone faces fewer compromises alone. That's freedom in service of vocation. Choosing to remain single while pursuing a demanding career is not a denial of love. It is a choice about timing and capacity. People who make that choice do so because they value the project in front of them and want to give it the attention required. There is also the question of dignity and social status. Some cultures elevate family life and view singlehood with suspicion. In those contexts, being single demands courage because of social stigma. Epictetus warned about public opinion shaping private life. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. The choice to stand apart for reasons of prudence or principle can invite critique. That cost is real. But courage under criticism is part of the ethical life. People who choose single life in the face of stigma practice a discipline similar to that of other unpopular, but principled choices. Some who choose single life do so because they see a moral value in fewer dependencies. If someone's moral aim includes reducing consumption, minimizing ecological impact, or simplifying a legacy for future generations, then a single life can be an expression of those values. It's not the only option, but it can be coherent with a broader moral project. People rarely appreciate how many small habits align with deeper ethics, such as choosing a smaller home, cycling, supporting local networks. These are easier without household obligations that expand resource use. That alignment can feel deeply satisfying and consistent. As people age, questions about care and company resurface. Many single people plan early for later life. They create legal proxies, cultivate neighborhood ties, and join community groups. Building these scaffolds early reduces anxiety later. Planning does not guarantee comfort, but it increases the chance of support. Single living can be as protected in later years as any partnered life if the social fabric is woven with intention. This is another reminder that single life requires proactive thought, not resignation. We should also consider how single life can foster creativity and risk-taking. Entrepreneurs, artists, and researchers often accept uncertain years with irregular income or time demands. Those who remain single during these seasons reduce the moral and practical pressure of needing steady support. Single life can be a period of high variance, higher risk, but also the potential for high reward. Managing that variance responsibly, with savings, friends, and sensible plans, turns solo living into a form of career strategy. It is chosen risk, not random chance. Now, let's address the worry about missing out. People fear that if they opt out of couple culture, they will miss key rites of passage. That fear is real, but its sting dulls with time as alternative rites appear. Friend groups throw housewarming parties, communities host cultural gatherings, and personal projects mark the passage of years. Life milestones shift. A completed book, a successful business, or a sustained travel season become meaningful markers. The question is which milestones matter most to someone. Stoic clarity invites the person to choose the milestones that align with their values instead of the ones handed down by default. When the question comes, why stay single? The answer is not a single moral decree, but a set of practical judgments. It is about matching life form to values, about creating space for growth, and about making choices from a position of clarity rather than panic. That is the Stoic way. Measure, plan, act, and cultivate inner strength. Staying single can be a season of forming, a deliberate strategy, or a long-term shape of life. In any case, when done thoughtfully, it aligns with a philosophy that prizes freedom, responsibility, and clear judgment. There's a calm dignity in making deliberate choices and in standing with the life one has reasoned about. Epictetus offers a final note that fits here. It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Reacting with steadiness, building community, and cultivating discipline are all paths to a life that holds up. Whether a person pairs up later or not, the life built on these actions tends to be robust. So the quiet answer to the question of single life is simple. In modern conditions, staying single often makes sense. It can preserve freedom, support focused work, reduce unnecessary obligations, and allow a person to build a life by choice. It asks for planning, community, and care. It is not a retreat from life. It is a form of living with attention. And that is where we end. Not with a call to change, but with a reminder. Choose deliberately, live with steadiness, and let reason guide the shape of life.